pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Well, our meeting is called to order. Thank you, everybody, for attending under kind of extraordinary measures of trying to distance, and the weather didn't help for some people anyway. Hopefully, if the public is viewing, you can still hear us talking. You can't see our mouths moving, but we are, in fact, here. So, privilege of the floor. There is no public here, none on, correct? These are all board members. Okay. So what we can do is skip to the minutes on page 3. Everybody's received their minutes for the LDC, starting on page 3, running through page 4. And if we have any comments or motion to accept in a second, please.
I'll make a motion we approve.
A motion to accept, a second, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are moved as presented. Treasurer's report, starting on page 5. Paul, please.
Okay, yeah, page 5 is the income statement. It's pretty much in line. We have a major change from the previous month with some year-end retirement accruals. Pages 6, 7, and 8 of the report is programs, which all seem to be in line from the previous month. Page 9 is the balance sheet. The total liabilities and capital is down about $50,000, but it still looks to be in line with expectations. Page 10 on the receivables, you'll notice it lists LCO Destiny as 60 days in arrears, but I was informed this morning that they're now current, which is very good news. And pages 11 through 18 are different aged receivables for other programs, and they look good too. So with that, I move acceptance of the treasurer's report.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second, please?
Second, John.
Okay, multiple seconds, somebody. And any discussion? I have one comment. While for next month, since we changed our fiscal year, it'll say 1 month ending next month on the top.
We figured out.
Maybe. This,
We're gonna go up to 16 months.
well, we'll get a financial statement out of it.
Okay,
But in order to convert to a calendar year, the system won't allow a simple conversion.
Okay.
We have to form a new.
so we may end up having to sort of have, like, it might be 4 months next year, but it's really our first full month of the new fiscal year. Okay.
It will be, it may look a little funny.
I know it'll correct itself next year.
We'll do our best.
We're working with our IT people to get a.
All right,
Yeah.
well, hopefully.
It's just on the conversion month. We have, I can't close out last year until we complete our audit.
Correct.
I can't form a new company until. we
No,
complete the audit.
that's fine. It's just more of a procedural thing.
Yeah.
So we had a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed, motion carries. So, I guess committee reports, there really are none under there, so we could go to council. I don't think, I don't.
Okay, we can talk about ag when we get
Well, if you
down
wanna
to
go through all of them, in whatever order, I'll leave it up to you guys.
ag. I'll talk about a little bit when we get down to the American Recovery Act Fund.
Okay.
Manufacturing, we are working with Lewis County, Marshall Island, planning for March, April, doing sort of a joint Jefferson Lewis manufacturing forum to bring manufacturers together to identify issues that are common that we may be able to work on together to address. So.
Okay. Anything else for you guys? Good?
I'm gonna cede my time.
Okay, very good. I had again, it's kind of a procedural question, more for Justin. This is technically our first meeting of the new fiscal year, and I think we have indicated, we've already done our organizational meeting of our old. Can we skip our organizational meeting and kind of just move it to next January? Or is there some act we need to do right now?
No, I think you can proceed as planned with your slate of officers and your organization as is without having to make an adjustment 2 months after you made your last one. so-
Okay, no, I just, it's procedural stuff that I didn't think mattered much, but I thought I would ask, okay? So under new business, we're on page 23, which is, an engagement letter for the stub audit period for Bowers. I think if you recall back in, I don't know, October, whenever, when they came in and presented the last fiscal year before we changed, they said there would be a stub period audit. If you look at page 28 of your board packet, it explains that, they'll begin the audit on January 31st, 2022. They'll have fees for this 3-month period of $3,700 plus $300, so $4,000 in total to do the stub audit. We don't have a resolution for this. We do on the IDA, so I guess we'll just ask for a simple motion to move this stub audit. We have a motion to move the stub audit for $4,000. Okay, a second.
Second.
Any,
Oh.
any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, so, the stub audit will move forward as presented. That moves us to page, there isn't a page. Well, actually Dave sent us an email, I think, a while ago. If you want to go through the American, Recovery Plan funds, he
Sure.
sent this a while ago, back in August.
So real quickly, so the county, as we reported back in December, they approved the allocation of funds within the budget. And then this, in the January meeting, they actually approved the allocations into the IDA with the numbers that we proposed. So the next step is to do a 2-page MOU with the county to accept those funds and utilize them. We'll be talking to Justin about the best way. We may do a separate debate. Some of the funds may go through directly to the IDA. Some will certainly go directly to the LDC. But we're just gonna, after Justin reviews this, touch base with him on some recommendations of the best way to flow it through the agencies. But essentially, it includes the money we propose for helping with PCB remediation, funding to help with the sewer project to the airport and the business complex, as far as for IDA type projects. For the LDC, where I refer to the ag, it includes that Jefferson County Food Resiliency Program that we included, which includes grant programs for businesses that need equipment to get USDA certified for meat processing, assist with some grants for any value-added dairy processing, and the third category for general type ag value-added, which can be for produce and other types of things. There's also funding in there to expand the child care program, and on top of that, it's funding to help with deferred maintenance of some buildings, landlords when they weren't able to collect rent during the pandemic, and then also a small grant program to help small businesses with technology applications that may help them deal with operating more efficiently with fewer staff.
Mhm. So, okay. Any questions from the board?
That total allocation pool.
What money did you get from the county?
Well, about 4.6, just over 4.5 million, so about 4.6 million.
Okay. Now, is that something you have to apply for every application has to apply, or is it just they give you?
No, it's the count. There's a whole bunch of guidance about how these ARPA funds work, and the county, some has to go toward offsetting some of the costs that were incurred as a result of the pandemic. Masks, those types of things directly related to the pandemic. There's also a formula where a certain percentage they can allocate to other types of expenses, for business development. And so this was, an allocation of those funds. So it's not like a general they will have another round of funding coming up next year that we'll talk about some additional uses. But for now, this is where we're at. This is not like an annual program of any kind. It's directly related to the whole American Rescue Plan funds as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, we had a total of a little over $20 million, and this was the first half of it. And like David said, we got the other 10 million that we're looking to disperse too. So anybody has any ideas, shoot them through Dave to the county.
Very good. Okay. I guess I skipped over council. I didn't think you had anything in this particular meeting, Justin. Okay. So we're at the end of new business. I have a question on the bottom of that Bowers engagement letter. Somebody's got to sign it today.
You do.
Okay, but just remind me, please. I saw there was some signature, I didn't know if it was Dave or me. Okay, well, that's actually good.
Well, I would just report too, you recall this past year, we worked with Lewis County, we directly helped fund a child care development program. There's actually a ceremony tonight, they're graduating, recognizing the 8 people that went through that program. So those 8 people represent 64 new child care slots in the 2-county area. 4 of those people have already started in September, October, and they have 2 more starting this month and 2 more starting next month. So,
Okay. Anything else under new business with the rest of the board
One thing
or
I
staff?
One thing I would just suggest, having just heard what Bill said, sometime we should pull all 3 of those committees together and take a look and kind of brainstorm, knowing that the opportunity exists out there. So where do we want to channel that? And I mean, I'd rather be there first as last.
Very good. Okay. I guess if there's no more new business, we can ask.
Hey, Rob?
Yes,
Hey,
please.
Rob?
Go ahead, Ken.
I'd like to take this time to congratulate Bill on his new position with the county.
Yes. Congratulations, Bill.
For sure.
I think Ken held that position at one point in time. He can commiserate
So
as
did
well.
Paul, I think. And Dave, you did too, right? We got 3 ex-chairs and then a current chair. We're blessed.
Good luck, Bill, seriously. We have challenging times ahead still, I think.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, thanks, Kent, and yes, we echo that, Bill, congratulations. With that, if we can ask for an adjournment of the LDC? Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, so the meeting will stand adjourned. We will move to the IDA meeting. There was a revised packet sent out yesterday, 10-ish. So hopefully everybody has it. It's just changed a few page numbers and added a couple resolutions, so not substantial changes. So the meeting's already called to order. We've done a pledge. We do have public with Purcell, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you still can have privilege of the floor.
But he's free to speak now if you want to say anything public.
Yeah, I suppose, Mike, you're privilege of the floor if you want to speak now, but you're actually on the docket for later. Hi, Greg. Okay.
Oh, I can wait. There's no rush.
Okay, good. So minutes start on page 3 and they run through page 7, I think, or 8. So any comments on, everybody has received the minutes, and otherwise we can have a motion to accept? Okay, we have a motion, a second, please.
Second, John.
Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, with that, we'll ask for a motion, all in favor, excuse me, aye? Aye?
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, the minutes carried. Treasurer's report, starting on page 9. Paul, please.
Page 9 is the income statement. Our current month is up about $31,000, which isn't a bad thing. Page 10 and 11 is the balance sheet. Our total liability and capital is up about $122,000. Page 17 is the revolving loan fund, all our current, which is good news. 18 is the micro enterprise fund, all are current with exception of the 2 that have been out there for a while, Taste of the Sign and Colleen Cherry Tree Inn are only 2 delinquencies there.
There's one default.
Yes.
Yeah, there is one default. We have sent a demand letter to collect the whole thing. I'm not optimistic on that one. The other 2 are going to come through. We're reasonably sure of that.
Okay. Page 20 are the age receivables. I point out that that's there the retainage for Purcell on 146 Arsenal Street. That's what our contract allows us to hold back from their bills. So that's continuing. And pages 22 through 26 is the Arsenal Street Remediation Fund, and we're going to be talking about that. If you've noticed, there's 2 of those contracts that we had negative balances that we're going to have to clean up with the action we take today. But We're getting near the end on that, hallelujah.
Yes.
So, that's all I have on the treasurer's report, and I move it for acceptance.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? I had on page 12, I think this is a kind of a recurring comment, and it'll probably come out maybe next month. Once we get done with the PCBs, our plan was to convert the utilities back over to not ourselves. So why is going to take
Right,
over
yes,
the
yeah.
utilities? Okay, I thought that was our kind of goal. I wasn't sure if that changed. And Paul, in towards the tail end of your report, you were referring to like page 25 and 26 where there's negative balances that we've got to increase the amount for Paradigm and SES.
SES and Paradigm both show on the report in negative.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be AAC, not
I'm sure
SES.
that's from the additional testings we've been
Probably,
running.
yeah. That should say AAC, not SES.
Okay.
SES did the sampling for it, but AAC's been doing the remediation.
So on that point, Dave, hadn't we already increased the fund for the extra testing, or is this in addition to what we already increased?
Yeah, so you would authorize it up to 2.3 from the 2.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you at some point this morning to.
Okay, so there is an additional request
Yes,
coming up. Okay, all right. So we have a first, a second. Any other discussion on the treasurer's report? Okay, with that, we'll, all in favor, aye? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the treasurer's report, will move, and we'll come back to the,
Sure, yeah.
PCB remediation stuff. I think committee reports, alternative energies on page 27. Bill, if you would like to, or Bill or Paul or whomever, if you'd like to start, go through that.
Wow, the first chairman's first order.
I can hardly remember what was going on yesterday.
It'll get better, I think. Okay, we had an alternative energy committee meeting. We had an update on some solar projects. We talked about convergent extensively. That's a project in the town of Lyme and the village of Chameau that's been problematic. Dave has met with, I don't know if Dave and Marshall met with the school to figure out what their issues are. I understand their issue about having to increase their levy at the end of the pilot. Just so you know, I had some additional thoughts since I sent some information out the other day, Dave, that I'm gonna send you an email.
Okay.
The school is still reluctant to do a straight pilot without the educational contribution component.
Right.
I guess I'll let Dave add anything he wants and as it relates to convergent.
Well,
You'll see we have an additional resolution under alternative energy for amending our fee schedule. We had lengthy discussions on that to be, not so much to be more competitive, but to come in line with where we should be compared to what other agencies do. You know, we aren't trying to chase projects by lowering the fee. We're just trying to be consistent with other agencies. We also talked about additional requests for information at the application time, and you'll see that that's on there too. Updating our alternative energy application information. And that's to comply with the state's new appraisal module and their proposed, well, it's not a proposal anymore, requirements to follow a certain guidelines for appraising these projects so that we can adequately estimate the impacts of these projects. We need to have certain information. Plus, it's good for us to get the information so we can share it with the towns at the application time when they get involved.
Okay.
And that was pretty much it, unless Dave, you want to expand on convergence.
just, yeah, a little bit on conversion. I mean, when we met with them, they did, well, what they're trying to do, I think, with the educational contribution is, use that for funds that benefit the overall community. And their concern, I think there's a misunderstanding on their part, because, when we left the meeting, we were under the impression that there was some separate state ed requirement that affected where they could put their tax levy and tax cap. But then the follow-up information they sent us did not support what they explained to us was the concern. So the concern for them was actually that they end up losing and trying to have to increase the budget when the project comes off the pilot. But when you read the formula, when the money comes off the pilot, that money just moves down and increases and adds more to the tax levy, so the tax levy can rise to meet. And for those that aren't following this, I'm sorry, just trying to keep this quick and dirty, and anybody has questions, they can ask it. But actually, so, and you hire some of the school districts, point, well, we don't want to see what happened in Loudville. I talked to the Loudville business manager, and over what happened over there with the wind project, there was a decrease in revenue, but it was because they negotiated a new pilot before the old one finished that reduced the payments. And part of that was because when that wind farm went over there, the first large wind farm in the state, it was first one, they've changed the way they do those since in terms of state ed, but they actually got in under the Empire Zone. The state took away the Empire Zone, so that made it more difficult for the company to pay the agreed upon pilot. But she even said, she goes, still, I would do it again because we still benefit overall from having that project in place. And that's what I heard from Loudville Central School. So we'll pursue that and try to find out what the concerns are. Justin's trying to touch base with conversion attorney, so we have not heard from them directly yet. So I'm still kind of confused as how they're going to move ahead without the pilot, and what their interest might be there.
Dave, one of the things that I gleaned out of the information you shared with the Alternative Energy Committee is that the school, at the end of the pilot, let's say their levy is $2 million with a pilot of 200,000. Yes, they're not going to lose the ability to raise the amount of money they needed to operate, but they were concerned about explaining why the levy went from, let's say, $2 million to $2.2 million because of the loss of the pilot, even though chances are their tax rate would be negative, would go down because now the project's at full taxation and coming out of the pilot. So I think a lot of it is concerned about educating the public on how pilots work, as when it comes out of being exempt and going to fully taxable.
They also seem to be asserting that the tax cap would reduce by the amount of the pilot, which is not true. Which is not true, exactly. But that's the argument they were making. So I asked them to send us the information after.
I think it comes down to another meeting with the school to try to get a better handle on that, what their fears are. I'm concerned about doing something special for one school district, and then it's going to domino through every other pilot we do from now on how they're handled. But we also have two big projects that come into the town of Lyme. So that affect Lyme Central School District. So we got to get some sort of understanding with Lyme Central, or we might as well forget about these other projects.
Well, the other issue too is if the board decides to do a pilot at all, I don't think we have the ability to do anything other than our standard pilot in this case, if we're going to put it in place by the taxable status date of March 1st. And even doing that will require a special board meeting within the next couple of weeks. So we have time to do the hearing and then, bring it back to the board in February for approval and allow time to close.
So this is an
I don't have that same concern because I don't think they've reached their interconnection going live yet.
Oh, maybe, all right.
So I'm not sure that the new valuation model would impact them until they meet that operational date. And Justin, I would have to leave that up to you to opine. So it would be probably a negotiated assessment anyhow for the first year. But if I'm wrong, Justin, you can correct me.
I think the assessor make a determination on what improvements are completed. If the facility's substantially complete, whether or not they flip the switch on or not, it's a rateable. And the other piece of this is I understand that the tax cap and the assessment I think it's a bit of a paper tiger too, but, when a project goes into a pilot and becomes exempt in the first instance, the nuance with regard to the tax cap is that rateable, that assessed value can never be counted towards their growth factor, which is one of the denominators associated with the tax. And that it doesn't matter if it's year one of the pilot, if it's a 1-year pilot, or if it's a 20-year pilot and then it stops and then it becomes taxable. That rateable is never counted within the growth factor. That is a bit of a handicap with respect to growth under the tax cap, but it doesn't change anything when a pilot stops and that rateable becomes taxable from exempt. And to your point, Dave, the revenue is always there. It's either pilot revenue or even more tax revenue when it becomes taxable. So I don't think it's necessarily a budget hit or and a hit on their tax rate in any particular year. It's just a growth factor issue. And as long as they have the rateable there in either pilot revenue or tax revenue, I don't think there's any handicapping or any disadvantage with respect to their ability to levy taxes or affect their budget overall. So I think you're right. It's really an educational thing and working through the logic with each taxing jurisdiction. It's good to be down in the weeds to this extent to figure out all the potential outcomes. But I don't think there's an issue there with revenue per se.
All right.
I would agree.
So Paige, any other
I got a
discussion? I've got to
quick-
actually give this meeting over to John.
Okay, all right.
No, you
No,
can keep
no, go
discussing.
ahead.
I was just gonna give some instructions.
I got a question for Paul later. Go ahead.
John, we can either do page 30 and 31 now, and we can ask for a motion in a second to get these proposed changes, and then you can keep discussing the alternative energy. Is that okay? Then I can turn it over to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this, once we go through, this is the end of the alternative energy then?
Well, yeah, Ed's gonna have a question, but I just want to get these two things done, and then you can keep talking, go to building and grounds. It's a good clean break.
Yep.
So page 30 and
Okay.
31 of our board packet, there was a proposed change to the fee schedule and a proposed change to the information we collect in our application. If we could just have a simple motion and a second to accept these, so a motion, please.
Okay.
Okay, a second,
Second, John.
okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, very good. So those are moved. I'm gonna leave the discussion. Ed had a question. And, so John's gonna take over as chair. We'll move to building and grounds when you're done talking about renewable energy, and hopefully I can be back in a half hour. Maybe the meeting will be done. We don't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So anything more on the alternative energy bill or?
Quick question for Paul. Paul, all these community solar projects that when they flip the switch, is each one of them revenue? Are they all selling power to the grid for a predetermined amount? Or is each one of those community solar projects, the 20 megawatts, are some of them deriving 6 cents a kilowatt, some of them deriving 4 or 5? Are they all under New York State's agreement, Power Authority? They all pretty energizing the grid for the same amount of money per kilowatt?
All these small ones are distributed energy and they've signed up for a program and they're getting revenue from the state in form of a community credit or community adder as part of their revenue stream. So you look at whatever ISO zone we're in, and I think we're in the Mohawk value, and then they get this community adder added on top. So they aren't selling it per se to grid for whatever the current ISO value is. They may be selling it to them, but then there's additional revenue coming to them. So
Those
they
companies-
sit there and say they're getting 6 cents a kilowatt overall, when it may be 2 cents from the ISO queue and then 4 cents in a community adder or something like that.
Yeah, so the utility scale projects, they're selling directly to the grid, these large 100 megawatt. These smaller distributed energy projects that are 20 megawatts, 5 megawatts and below, they're actually, the policy, they get some state credits and tax credits, but for their revenue, they actually have to go out and market and sell their power. That's the postcards you get in the mail saying, hey, buy the our solar energy, clean energy, and get a discount off your energy bill. They have to go out and market that to either residents or institutional users.
But at the bottom of the line, you could argue the fact that each 20 megawatt community solar project is deriving different levels of income. They're not all the same. They may all be in the same category, but depending on how well they market.
Probably, yeah.
All right, that's just as we determine pilots going down the road and that being a moving variable. Thank you.
Well, Ed, as we try to determine their value, we have a set standard we have to
Right.
follow. Or let me put it this way, the town assessor has a set formula they have to use. So this community adder or the other factor, which is a community credit or distribution credit, I forget the exact way it's labeled, may change depending on what year the project begins. Okay, so there may be a project that has a different factor that the assessor has to add into it. That'll be what will drive the difference in the value of a project and how we do our cost benefit analysis.
Got it.
So you're right that they're not all going to be valued the same. Like if one doesn't get, if one of these projects gets a substantially lower adder, it'll have a major impact on its assessed valuation.
Thank you.
And just so you know, they're 5 megawatts. That's what the size of each one of these community solar projects are.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I misspoke myself there, right? I was jumping back to the county's criteria, the 20 megawatts. Yeah, sorry about that. You're right.
No, that's all right.
Okay, anything else on alternative energy? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to building and grounds committee.
Right, before we get into the having to extend our agreement with Y, now's a good time to turn over to Mike Ramus from Purcell, who's been fantastic to work with, and just kind of give us an update to any, on where we're at now, what the next steps are, and timeline, and then if you have any specific questions, he can answer them better than I can. So, Mike?
Okay, I'll probably bore David Marshall a little bit because I'm not sure how much everyone else is aware. David Marshall get an update pretty much on a daily basis, but the demolition portion is complete. I'm sure everybody's aware of that. The floor was exposed. The base bid 1/8 inch was ground fairly unsuccessfully as far as the test results went. We had a $227,000 allowance for an additional 1/8 inch in the contract, which we broke the building up by 10 by 10 squares, which is the way the unit price was done for a change order if needed. So that's how I'll refer to a square will be 10 by 10. The $227,000 additional 1/8 inch would do about 636 squares, which is the entire floor, one more pass. That was used. More successful than the first pass, still not very successful. We ended up some areas being as much as 6 passes, which is 3/4 of an inch deep, utilizing the unit price of 10 by 10 area. We were told by Ymca, the engineer, that structurally we couldn't go any deeper than 3/4 of an inch. And we still had 10 remaining squares out of 642 total that did not pass, which led to the structural engineer saying, basically the option was remove it without damaging the deck. That was started last night, off hours. We were doing it based on a time and material basis. We figured that was the most fair way of doing it. There were so many unknowns. And last night, 6 men for 8 hours got 6 of the 10 squares removed.
Wow.
So it went very well. I would say for sure we'll finish it tonight on an off-hour shift and get everything cleaned up and out of there, and it'll be down to concrete, which the first scheduled topping pour, which we can't get this done soon enough, so there's no more question on anything, got canceled because of weather. Watertown Concrete would not deliver concrete, and Kevin Bruno, the concrete case the contractor wouldn't travel because of the bare roads we have this morning.
Well, they made the call at 4 o'clock yesterday.
Yeah, they need to call 4 o'clock. You know how much preparation there is. I don't blame them, but I was a little frustrated. We cannot place concrete if it's not ambient temperature 20 degrees, not because of the concrete, 'cause that's indoors, but because of the trucks and the stockpiles and the aggregate and so on. So we have tours scheduled for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week, and Monday, Tuesday of the following week, which would be the week of the 17th to the 21st is our game plan, Mother Nature dependent, to have this closed out, complete, totally. There's one area which in the YMCA floor plan will be what they're calling their pool mechanical room. It's approximately 2,000 square feet. It's getting an underlayment type material. It's only a 1/4 inch thick gypcrete type. That will be done on Wednesday, the 12th. And then we have a game plan of what we're calling streamers. They are tape. They're made of tape hanging from the bar joist, what held the poly enclosure for the abatement. They will not be removed until the slab is completely placed and cured, just because of our concerns of putting lifts on the slab. Currently, it's so thin after the grind. With the additional grinding, we let everybody know we did have an allowance in there just in case of $8,120 for additional concrete that we may need. Originally, it was due to, unlevel floors or holes we find or whatnot. That will probably be used. I wouldn't say all of it. It's hard to predict, with the amount of things that went on, but we do have that to lean on. We will have additional concrete, obviously. Hopefully it's less than 40 yards. The 636 squares that were used with the allowance, just to give everybody an update. Now that we are 100% complete with the grinding, we ended up with 496 more in addition to the 636. So we ground 1,157 squares total. 25 was a misinterpretation of the rules with Paradigm. So they're paying for 25 of them, which puts us down to the 1132. And then we took the 636 out of the allowance. So we ended up with 496 additional. That proposal I just sent over today so we can process that one. Any additional ones would only be additional concrete, which would be taken care of by the allowance, would not change the contract value. And we have an RFI in the old Harvest House area. Once that was demoed and the floor was removed, we found, I believe, 6 floor drains where the kitchen area used to be that were actually under the new flooring. We're waiting on a response from Bernier Carr for that. But assuming that they're gonna want those floor drains removed, that would be an additional cost for Hydestone to come do that work. And in that same vicinity, there was some broken up, poor condition concrete. I'm guessing, I'm not old enough to know, but I'm guessing it's where the old wall of the Harvest House was, where I met the new slab. And we're hopeful that the engineer just comes back with remove the loose concrete and pour over top, nothing crazy that could be big cost. But I've been having some verbals back and forth with DCA. I just need to hear it in writing from the structural engineer to proceed with that. And I believe, Dave, that is it. Once we are done with our pour, we're going to remove the temp fence that everybody sees, so that the city can go back to utilizing that parking space for the time being between the finishing of the JCIDA project and starting of the YMCA project, and then they can maintain it as well.
Hey, Mike, how many cubic yards total are you estimating for from this, on those 4 days?
So we're probably going to do it in 5 pours. Originally, we estimated about 280 yards. With the additional depth and then removing those 10 squares, I'm guessing it's going to be closer to 300, 310 yards probably. If we're going to do about 75-yard pours is our estimate.
How many trucks does Watertown Concrete have? You gonna be able to keep up with you?
Yeah, so because they're so close and we're doing it with buggies, we're probably only going to use 2 or 3 trucks. It won't, because it's only 2 to 2.5 inches thick. So, it's gonna, 1 buggy goes a long way.
I didn't realize you were using buggies. Okay, good. Thanks.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Is it possible before the pour that those of this board that would like to have a tour to see what actually we did? Or is it to the point where there's still environmental issues that we can't enter the building?
No, it is, we, did final airs for the asbestos portion last week and got clean airs. So if anybody wanted to get into the building, I can meet anybody over there. That's not a problem at all. It's currently the PCB squares that we're removing, which is a good thing. We sent to Rodman the test results from the grinds, which proved it was less than 50 parts per million. I think the highest one was 4 parts per million. So it's regular C&D. So our construction that's going on right now at night is your just regular construction demo.
I'd love to see it before you pour it. I think, just to see what we really did.
Yep.
Do you want to try to plan, do you want to try to plan for something Monday morning, mid-morning on Monday? Does that work for people?
This is just me. I'd love to see it. I don't want to create extra work on anyone, but I'd love to see what actually we did.
For $2.5 million, why not?
I can organize that.
That's not an issue at all. I would say anytime. I have hard hats here and safety glasses. If you guys have your own, bring them just because it's standard protocol. But if Dave wants to set something up where a group came through, that's fine. If there's only a couple that want to come, they can reach out to me, Dave. I mean, I'm only just down the road, so unless I have a meeting, I can get somebody there anytime.
All right, Marshall, he'll coordinate that. I'm thinking maybe we shoot for like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock Monday morning. Does that work for most people here? That are
That
interested?
worked for me.
Okay. All right.
Mike,
Me too.
Mike, I just have a quick question and just reaffirm my confidence maybe. But with all this substrate work being done on the floor, I assume Bernier and Carr has coordinated that with future plans. I mean, my concern is I just hope we're not missing any opportunities at this point in time, redoing that floor to the point where down the road, when they start the rebuild, we have to start, we missed something and they've got to tear floor sections up because they didn't anticipate from blueprints or whatever that this section needed, we might have to go through this part of the floor now to do this or that or whatever. I assume Bernier and Carr is reviewing future plans and syncing them with the opportunity now with the floor being demoed, are they not?
I agree with you in hope. I can't tell you what they're doing, but yes, that was the plan all along. I don't know if it will. Let me share my screen on this, Dave.
Sure, yeah.
I can make it so.
Let me pull up a drawing to show everybody. I don't want to bore you, but
Hey, Ed, I'm confused on the question a little bit.
Well,
What Ed's asking is, as we put this floor and pour it back in place, is it going to serve moving forward with the Y needs, or is it going to require reconstruction on the Y's part to adapt? We're just making sure are the plans being
Right, but
coordinated.
why have reconstruction with the original, that would be on their bill, would it not?
And they've been a part of this, we have 2 meetings with them a week.
right, and here again, that relieves us of any obligation, but still, I looking out for the why, and it's still community dollars here. It's like, I hope just because it's out of our domain that we don't have to worry with it. I want somebody to reassure me that all parties involved are forward thinking and we're not the Y isn't going to have to go back in there and demo the floor that we're pouring now because we missed something.
Right, yeah, I think they're good on that.
All right.
so in response to that, if you can see my screen, I'll call it the pink area, is where we're placing the concrete topping. And the area that I'm circling right now is actually a future stair that we're going to be putting down in the old Page Fitness area that's required by code. So things like that we thought ahead, that this area will be boxed out. We will not place concrete here because we know we're going to have to cut that floor out in the future project. It just saves that much labor in the future. And then you'll see this whole entire area that's white, there's no work going on in this area as far as placing new concrete or topping because it's going to be on the YMCA project. This area is called out as a locker room with a 3-inch mud bank. So it would be kind of pointless, like you said, to place concrete and then hammer it out and put a 3-inch mud bank. So they have, items like that we've done. And I mentioned earlier, the Gyp Creek underlayment, that this is going in this hatched area. What that'll do is once the 3-inch mud bed is in that white area, it'll all be, finished floor, it'll be level. But that particular area being the pool mechanical room will have nothing but a 1/4-inch underlayment material on it because it's gonna be chemicals. So if there was a spill, it's almost a recessed containment area. You'll step down into that room in that area. The Bernie Carr has laid out, overlaid the JCIDA drawings with the future floor plans of the YMCA so that will line up right with their wall, their pool mechanical room. This area will be the edge, that's the edge boundaries of their locker room. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that gives me the confidence
Yeah.
that all parties are in sync.
And what's happening, every Monday morning, we have a weekly call hosted by Mike with us. It includes reps from the Y as well on this project. Then there's a Monday afternoon meeting that BCA hosts where we're on that call as they're discussing the design and, refinements to the Y project. So it's happening both areas. And then also through the Y, besides the engineers involved, Jim Corvo, who's on the Y board, was, former DPW superintendent of Fort Drum, is, active and helpful in all those discussions. And then there's like a monthly Friday morning call with Denise's committee. So there's a lot of cross communication going to make sure we
That's
coordinate.
good. All right, that reassures me.
Okay,
So Mike, real quick, so I'm just thinking, so right now we had authorized up to 2.3 million. I'm just thinking the change order for the 3 grinds, like another 177,000. So just shy of 2. We'll probably have some additional testing costs in there. And then we don't know yet what the additional costs might be with AC as they look to remove these 6 they just removed into 4. Their slabs are gonna remove tonight. So if we went up, if you think we're safe, if we added up to another 300,000.
Let me see here. I would love to say yes right off the top of my head, but I don't want to get burned. So basically they had 48 man hours last night.
Yep.
So that's worst case, they would have 48 again tonight. I don't know how many men they're bringing tonight. So 48, that's 96. This wage rate kills us on this job. I would say, I can't believe that their cost would exceed 10,000.
All right.
With materials, dumpster fees and labor. And then we have the Harvest House area. I do not see that being a big deal. I hope I'm not undermining myself, but I mean, Highstone's gonna come in and remove those 6 drains. I'm very hopeful they tell us just to remove the drain itself and leave the pan, because the pan, acts as 18 by 18, almost a structural deck. Hopefully they allow us to leave that. We can just get it below the floor and overpour the whole thing. And then the loose concrete removal, we'll do that ourselves, and I'm not too concerned about that, honestly, Dave. So, I've got a couple men available, I'll just grab them. I don't see that taking a long time, as long as they don't get into some intricate structural detail. So, 177, is that what it was, 172?
The regrinds, yeah.
On the regrind. So 300 total, I don't see an issue with that. I mean, you're gonna have concrete testing fees, but you have a proposal on that,
Yeah,
correct?
that's only 2,000, so.
Okay, and then you're all set with Paradigm currently, or,
I think so, yeah.
okay, I think you're more than safe.
Okay, so I guess I would
I
ask,
think they're going up to 2.6 million then, Dave, on this project?
yeah, if we could, and hopefully we'll be under that, but just to give me some room to work with.
Okay.
Well, and you
Yeah.
want
Thanks for the update, Mike.
8120,
Appreciate it.
not a problem, that, the 8120 for the concrete, Dave, whatever's not used comes back to you, you know that, right?
Right, yeah.
I think that was a good question that brought up, because you'd hate to spend good money and then turn around and tear it all up in a certain area, that doesn't need to be so.
well, and I think that puts the
Want to
responsibility.
move on to the proposed second amendment lease?
Well, so I guess, Mike, we're set with you if you want to go, but I guess, so thanks, Mike. But I guess I gotta ask for a board, motion, to increase allowable amount for the project.
I'll move it.
2.6.
I'll move we authorize an additional, you wanted 300,000?
Yeah.
300,000.
We're talking a total of 2.6 now,
Yes.
is that?
Yeah.
what I'm hearing?
Yep.
Okay. We have a second, Dave, did you second that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike, what are you paying for concrete? What's
Any opposed?
Watertown's charge for concrete on that job? The 2,000 yards, or not 2,000, 200 yards? I'm just
So
curious.
it's gonna tip you out of your chair. It's between $180 and $200 a yard because there's a macro synthetic 2¼ inch fiber mesh in it instead of a metal reinforcing mesh. That's almost $30 a yard, and it's a 4,500 pound high cement mix. And then, of course, we've got $10 a yard for heated water. And the cost of everything's gone up too, but that mesh is extremely expensive. So it ranges for us depending on, I know they're gonna get us with hot water and things, $180 to $200 a yard. We have a unit price locked in with the JCIDA on this project. And it is what it is, at 203, and that's plate, that's labor and material.
Well, yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that,
Yeah.
to have it placed.
So on this motion we did was just basically not to exceed $300,000 additional funding, is that what we,
Yes, that brings us up to 2.6.
okay.
All right, I'll leave you guys alone then. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, moving on to the proposed second amendment lease agreement for the YMCA building project.
Yeah, so building and grounds did meet, Kent couldn't stay with us for the report here, but, we forwarded, we recommended this, so we have a draft second amendment. All this basically does is, I'm working with Tim Fitzgerald and Justin's firm, his colleague. It basically extends the expiration date. The current contract, lease agreement with Y, expires January 13th. So in committee, the committee approved this draft, which has extending to February 18th. Although after we finished meeting, we thought, we probably should have extended it further. So we just agreed, rather than try to reconvene and recommend that at this meeting here today, we would say that's, we're recommending the second amendment agreement, but extending the expiration date to April 15th. So it gives us time for the Y by March will have their final GMP, their guaranteed maximum price in place, and design, so we can execute a new agreement, a permanent agreement. And then that gives the committee and us time to negotiate with the Y. If we want to make any changes to the existing ground lease, it gives us time to negotiate that between then and April.
Okay, so then we need to have a motion for this lease agreement with the change to April 15th, or from February 18th to April 15th, then, Dave?
Yes.
I'll make that motion, Dave.
Second,
A second, Lisa.
thank you. I guess we got a roll call vote on this. Any further discussion, I guess, on this?
There's no thing, but I can do it.
No, actually, we don't have a roll call vote on this one.
You want me to do it anyway? I got it.
Sure. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Dave,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Rob is currently out of the room. John,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa. Yes.
Okay. Motion carried. Anything else on the building grounds, Dave?
No.
Okay, I guess moving on to unfinished business. So we have the CWT application for the CWT project then?
Yeah, so I'll turn this over to Justin, but basically as Jay had reported before, we'd already done the approval of this project, but they are now doubling the size of the project. Which changes the amount of the benefit involved. So basically we had them submit an amended application, did an updated cost benefit analysis, and then Justin's drafted this resolution for this. So Justin, I'll turn it over to you for any comment.
Sure, yeah, this is just restarting the process. The project's been modified to increase the overall square footage of the building. And the overall acreage is changing a little bit by necessity because of the building coverage on the lot. So we're just describing the project in a different way to fit the new footprint. The application outlines the cost differential that's gone up substantially. The building's nearly doubled in size. So based on that, we're able to I would assume quickly process the amended application. And in essence, start back from zero, but process rather quickly to keep up with their projected construction schedule starting late spring.
Things are going well with Empire State Development? or
Waiting to hear on
questionable?
that, so.
Waiting here. You're not part of that?
Other than just Jay doing helping them with some of that application and just keep reminding them to get it in, which they did, so.
Do we have a resolution for this, Dave?
Yep.
I'm trying to scroll down my computer.
It was right after the YMCA agreement. The top of it says initial project resolution. It'd be page 35.
Oh, okay, no, I got it there. Oh, yeah, I got it here, yeah. So, on resolution 01062022.01, resolution of the Jefferson County Industrial Agency accepting an application submitted by CWT Farms International Incorporated for itself and/or on behalf of one or more entities to be formed collectively the company with respect to a certain project as described below, authorizing scheduling and conduct of public hearing with respect to the project and describing the forms of financial assistance being contemplated by the agency with respect to the project. Can I have a motion to move the resolution?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second, Dave?
Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, there's a roll
Aye.
call.
Oh, yep.
Any opposed?
There was a roll call vote on this one, Dave, John.
Thank you, the motion carried. Oh, is it? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Dave,
Roll call vote, please.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Rob is out of the room. Ed,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
and Paul.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried now. Thank you. Any more on that, Dave, you wanna talk about, or we all set there?
No, I think we're good.
CWP?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Resolution 01062022.02. This is the Bowers engagement. What page is this, Dave?
Page 81.
Okay. Okay, we got her here. Resolution 01062022.02, engage auditors for Stub period audit. So whereas Bowers and Company has presented engagement letter to audit the statements for the stub period of October 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2020, the fee will be $6,500 for the audit and $400 for preparation of information returns. And now therefore to be resolved by the Board of Directors of the Jefferson County Industrial Agency that it hereby approves the stub period audit as set forth in this resolution, and to be further that the chairman, vice chair, secretary, and or chief executive are authorized and directed to execute any and all documents necessary to carry out the the purpose of this resolution. All right. Now motion to. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I got a quick question, maybe Lyle.
All in favor?
I got a quick question as far as the audit fees. To do the stub audit, and which is a 3-month period, as I understand, right?
Correct.
So at the end of the year, when we do our full audit, we'll only be auditing 9 months. Well,
Because the stub audit is for the October to December period.
Yeah.
The end of the new fiscal year is gonna be December, so January to December is gonna be
It'll be
12
a
months.
full 12 months.
Yeah.
all right. Well, I was hoping maybe we could save some, we'd recapture some of that in the subsequent audit. What you're telling me is no. All right,
That's the answer.
all right. That's all I had.
Okay. So we voted on this and we moved it. Anything else on that, Dave?
Nope.
Or- Okay. So now we're into American Recovery Funds for Jefferson County.
Yeah, so just to repeat sort of for the minutes here, but what I reported in the LDC meeting, the county did approve about 4.6 million in funds to our agencies combined. About 2.5 of that will go to IDA related projects, one being PCB remediation will be $1 million, another $1.5 million going toward the cost of run sewer, new sewer district to serve the airport and the business complex at the airport. So as I said, we'll be working with Justin and the county. It'll be a simple 2-page agreement, but we just need to figure out which funds we want to go through, which agency, or I'll go through one, then funnel from the LDC to the IDA.
Okay. Any questions on that from anybody? So the next is the proposed MOU with New York State and Ymca for DeFerrier Mill.
Yeah, so this follows up on last month, we approved an MOU between the county, the IDA, and the Ymca on working together to move ahead and doing the investigation, the phase 1s, and developing a plan for the DeFerrier site. This deals with protections afforded by DEC, and I'll turn it over to Justin to explain this one.
Sure. The corresponding MOU that has already been executed. Are you guys here?
Have you ever determined decide whether we have any liability in this?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you,
We can
Justin.
hear you. John, you're a little bit sort of in and out.
Yeah, I don't have my internet here, but I just wondering, do we have any liability with this project being, it's a cleanup, I guess it's a cleanup effort, is that what it is?
Well, that's part of this MOU. I'll let Justin explain that, and then let's ask questions after Justin's explanation.
Yeah, sure. I can touch on that quickly. The MOU that we have in place with NYSERDA and the county kind of sets the stage for how the county would contemplate closing on the properties and causing title to be transferred into either the IDA or a special purpose LDC. I would think the latter for posterity and risk management purposes. We just set up a bankruptcy remote sister entity, not using the IDA itself. Once title's put in place, there will be a NYSERDA-led planning process and permitting process for the majority of the property, with the IDA retaining the ability through its sister entity to retain portions of the property that won't be used for the renewable energy development. Those would be the kind of the derelict building areas that are adjacent to Brookfield's hydro plant. The second piece, so this other MOU that NYSERDA, the county, and the IDA are looking to enter into now, also includes DEC, which is really the enforcing authority for remediation and liability, to waive pursuit of remedies against the IDA, county, and NYSERDA in their good faith efforts to remediate the properties. So in essence, what this means is we wouldn't be considered a PRP in the first instance, the potential responsible party. They would continue to look to prior owners and operators of the plan itself for any kind of recovery. So that's good news that DEC is essentially letting the IDA and the county and NYSERDA off the hook for their good efforts. There would still be potential liability theories through EPA and otherwise with respect to some contaminants. So to answer the most pressing question, do we have liability? The use of a bankruptcy remote LDC, which would be a sister entity managed by you, controlled by you, and perhaps stakeholders from the county and perhaps even the village or town, depending on how the working group is really gelled up. How do you establish a board that oversees that entity? Any liability that would be kind of contingent or a more theoretical, that is a valid concern, would attach to that bankruptcy remote sister entity, not the IDA itself. So the planning process that we've discussed thus far would be to use a remote entity to manage the project and the ownership going forward. So you're not placing the IDA or the LDC proper at risk for any liability or recovery long-term. If anything outside of DEC, if there's a federal EPA case or some sort of other collateral recovery action to occur, that would be trapped up with the bankruptcy remote entity, not the IDA or the LDC or any of your assets. So it's about.
I always get concerned when we talk about going after previous owners, because in my mind, if a site has been identified as contaminated at the time of ownership, I always thought they were the ones responsible for the cleanup at that time, not, to say it just sits there forever and ever and ever until somebody decides to do something else with it, I find it hard to believe you're gonna be able to go back onto it or there, because otherwise they would have cleaned it up at this point.
Well, it's a chain of title issue. The majority of the liability, it's in years of studies go into these enforcement cases, and they determine proportions of liability based on use and the time of ownership. In this particular case, you have the plant ownership for many, many, many years, decades, and then an interim owner who went in there and just scrapped the place, who that liability exists for their period of ownership and operation, even though they're in the wind. And that's really the issue right now. The good news is that because the IDA, county, and NYSERDA have put a foot forward to do the right thing with the property, DEC is essentially saying they're not going to come after us just because we happen to be entitled or might be entitled going forward at some point in time. So it's a bit of a get out of jail free card for us. It does not curtail or limit what DEC or other enforcement agencies may do with prior owners, if they choose to try to pursue any costs or recovery against those prior owners.
So I have a question. The first memorandum of agreement we dealt with last month was to engage the three parties to start the exploratory. Am I not correct?
Yep.
So I guess my question is, why do we need to take further action now until we come back with the results of that exploratory?
Because our agency, the county, and even NYSERDA themselves would like this kind of assurance from DEC before they proceed to invest funds into something that they aren't going to do.
Into the search and
We don't want
find.
to get into doing all this and find out, okay, now we try to do something, we're going to be responsible. So it's to put all our agencies at ease, all those three partners at ease in terms of moving ahead together on the project.
All right.
And they're actually working, NYSERDA is in communication with EPA to look at some sort of release letter or something from them too, so.
I see.
So, did I hear you correct, Dave? This is really just to show that now we have DEC engaged in the
Well,
agreement?
it gives the three partners that signed last month's MOU, it gives us all a comfort level in moving ahead, investing in doing the remediation studies, investing in, coming up with a plan to address, remediate and develop that property, that if we're gonna invest that, getting that far, we don't wanna get down and also run into the issue of, okay, now we're gonna be responsible, we have to try to do anything. So it's really just kind of put us all at ease and give us some comfort level moving forward, the investment that we're gonna entertain together to do the environmental review study.
Okay. So do we have to have a motion on this document?
Yes.
Okay.
And the county, just so you know, the county's already approved it, signed it. So I have copies in my office. Once I get your approval, I will sign them and then we'll send them back and I serve them.
So
This is Paul on the resolution.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. I also have a question. So time-wise, how long, once we enter into this, then it'll solidify the exploratory from
Yeah.
involved agencies.
Yeah.
What kind of a timeline are they looking at for
Probably
completing
later, I
that?
think, NYSERDA's got the phase one, they've engaged somebody already getting in there and starting the phase one. By the end of this month, early February, we'll be starting, hopefully getting the phase two underway.
Oh, really? So we'll know in 6 months from there, roughly?
I guess once we see what the timeline is, yeah, it could be. I'm not sure how long that's gonna take, but.
Anything else, Ed?
No. That's it.
All in favor on the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried, thank you. Anything else on that subject, Dave?
No,
Okay, so I guess we move on to supplemental project authorization resolution for Roth Industries.
Justin?
Sure, yeah, the Roth has reached out to Dave and staff with regard to some cost increase associated with their project. You may recall that we approved their expansion project in early March of 2021, closed on their agent agreement for sales tax purposes in mid-March, and then ultimately closed their straight lease and pilot as of November 30th of 2021. They're nearly done with the project. They're a few months out from wrapping up punch list and being completed with the project. They've let Dave and staff know that supply chains, materials, costs, and other things have pushed up their project costs marginally, but significantly to the point where the amount of sales tax benefit that was estimated at the time of approval needs to be bumped up a little bit to allow them to wrap things up. They've given Dave the corresponding amounts of increased sales tax required to wrap up the project, which is included in your resolution today. It's not a ton. It doesn't require a new public hearing because it's less than $100,000 of new benefit. But for posterity and out of necessity, the agency needs to bump up that amount in the documents that were closed with the transaction. You may recall under the current general municipal law rules, we have to cap the total amount of expenditures and corresponding exemption within your resolutions, within the agent agreement and the various IDA documents. So the resolution that we have in front of you today would allow that adjustment and increase the sales tax benefit to allow them to wrap up.
Okay, I can relate to the supply chain increases. I feel it being. So on resolution 01062022.03, a resolution of Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency authorizing additional financial assistance to Roth Industries Incorporated, the company, in connection with a certain project previously undertaken by the agency, as more fully described below, and authorizing the execution of related documents with respect to this project. Can I have a motion to move that
So moved.
resolution? And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? This is not a roll call, no.
Yep.
Oh, it is a roll call. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Rob is out of the room. Dave,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
and Paul.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried, or resolution carried, thank you. Anything else on the Roth Industry, Dave?
Hey, do you want to ask Justin, do we have to approve the supplemental agreement as well?
Oh, yeah, is there a supplemental agreement we have to approve,
Or
Justin?
The second amendment? Or does the resolution cover it?
This resolution authorizes, as far as us doing the agreement, we don't need a separate, resolution for the agreement that will be amending. Do we?
No, the resolution speaks to that. I just set the amendment around for edification.
Okay.
So we got to do any more on that second amendment?
Nope.
Oh, you all set.
Okay. All right, Justin, do you have anything?
No, I'm all set. I don't know if there's any other topics or Dave.
John, I got a question. It was posed to me by a legislator the other day, and for some reason I remember the subject, but does anybody that's on the board remember anything about the New Falls track upgrade? Is the IDA involved with that at all, to know?
In the what?
Newton Falls Track.
Newton Falls track upgrade?
Yes, and Newton, that was, that was like the first round back in 2011, when the state, first round of the CFA. St. Lawrence County received a grant to upgrade that. Our involvement along with Lewis County, because the rail corridor passed through the 3 counties, we had to coordinate, and we did do a pilot on that project, as did Lewis County, as did St. Lawrence County. And the pilot is based on number of cars, type of material being aggregated. Of course, they haven't been doing anything with it at this point, but yes, so we're involved from the idea of providing a pilot.
But has that project moved forward? I guess that's the question.
No,
Okay.
I mean, it's moved forward, and that they have done, I think they completed most of the improvements under that grant, so that St. Lawrence County was heading up. So it's done as far as that goes, but there's been no utilization of the rail yet, by the mine, that would incur any kind of pilot payments to the 3 county IDA.
Wasn't the business doing it for a little while and then closed?
They were certain mine, yeah, but they had not yet utilized the rail.
They
So.
So but as I recall, Conrail was gonna have to do some remediation on the line, right? Did those improvements get done?
Well, St. Louis County oversaw the improvements. It's the Mohawk, Adirondack, and Western Railroad that runs up through there. Yeah,
So,
but the improvements I do are pretty much done. I think those are all completed, not all completed, nearly done. Yeah, it was, replacing ties in some sections, doing some culverts, replacing gravel.
so if they wanted to start shipping ore out of that mine, the rail infrastructure is there for them, those upgrades were done.
One of the concerns within Judge County, it's Carthage, which is in our county, which was not part of the project, where they were crossing right across through State Street, but the railroad finally went ahead on their own. They made improvement to that crossing, which made the village a lot happier.
And that's what was servicing Slack.
Yeah, that kind of goes down through, yes.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question, Bill?
Yes.
Anything else for any board member? Okay, have a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And we stand adjourned. So we have the next meeting here. Apologize here, I'm kind of going through my thing here. The snow has slowed down my internet.
Well, it's snowing good in Sackets right now.
Okay, I got her here now. So I'd like to call order the meeting of the Jefferson County Civic Facility Development Corporation. And we have the minutes from December 2nd. Are there any additions and or corrections?
I'll move for approval.
Do you have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
I,
Okay, thank you. Treasurer's report?
Well, you'll see we had a fee income of $1,500 from the current month. That's the only transaction. We have a balance of $61,669 and change. And I would move the treasurer's report.
I'll
I
second.
have a second. All in favor?
I,
Thank you. Committee reports? I don't know if we have any committee reports. Any unfinished business?
We need a budget approval on the corporation. We neglected to approve that when we did the LDC and the IDA, and a copy of the budget is attached.
Okay,
I'll move the proposed budget.
can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Okay. Any other business for the civic facility development?
Lyle, when would we want to move some of this money over to the IDA and?
At your pleasure, do it anytime. There really isn't any pressing need for it right now, so I've sort of left it where it is.
We can
That
put
keeps
it
the
toward
accounts open and so
we can put
on.
it toward the remediation cost.
That was my idea, if we could start paying down some of that remediation cost with it.
Make a motion and we'll have,
I make a motion, we move the balance or as much of it as you want. Do you want to leave some in here, Lyle?
we should keep a little in there to keep the account open.
I would generally for not necessarily a dormant entity, but a quieter entity, you're gonna want at least 3 or 4 years of estimated carrying costs, legal, accounting, and other base costs that it incurs in a given year. So if you're looking at, something like 5 or 10 grand a year, I would leave, 20 in there anyway. You may not have a transaction for 2 or 3 years. You just don't know.
Why don't we ask
We haven't had any since
to
it started.
propose a transfer to be considered in our next meeting?
That's great.
That's fine.
That sounds, we'll do that.
Okay. Any other business?
I move we adjourn.
I second the adjournment.
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Thank you all.
Recording stopped.
Here.
Tell Rob to come pick his paper.